Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the Intelligent Developers, led by Andre Bueno and Jerrod Delaine. And today we have the fantastic guest, Yvette Brissett-Andre. How you doing, Yvette?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, Jerrod. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Andre, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. I'm very excited to jump into this conversation. Just to learn so much about the work that Yvette has done. With her perspective on supportive housing and service-driven development. So I'm excited to jump into this conversation.
Fantastic. So please, Yvette, let's start from the top. How did you get into the real estate business?
All right. I'm going to age myself. I went back to school in 98, 90, 95, 98, 98 to get my 98 to get my master's in public administration. I'm a National Urban Fellow, and I went in to resign when I got into the fellowship. And my supervisor at that time was Sandra Butter, and I was working for VIP Community Services. And when I went in to resign, she said, "Oh, I'm a fellow. I'm a National Urban Fellow, and I've been looking to do something with the fellowship for a long time. Let me sponsor you." And my background is an accountant. I was the controller of the agency, and she had to give me a different experience. And VIP had a housing entity, and she put me into that division. And I ended up, doing my capstone on low income tax credit, and I work with her. And that was my introduction into the development world.
But how did development get you into like supportive housing? Like, was that a natural path, or how did that kind of play out?
So VIP Community Services built affordable low income tax credit supported housing for individuals with substance use issue. So, I worked with her in developing a project called Father Vinomi, who was the founder of VIP, and that was what I did with her. During my capstone, I was introduced to the developers, I was introduced to the whole capital stock. I was working and putting together the project. Hence, when I graduated, I had to give her 2 years of commitment. I gave my 2 years, and then I left and I went to Western United. And while I was there, I talked my executive director, Jean Newberg, into opening up or getting into low income tax credit. And we did a housing there. And, I started building affordable housing. Fast forward in 2008, I became the executive director here at Unique People Services. And it was just natural for me to want to do, to develop housing, because in doing a continuum of care model, providing housing, you go and you see housing that your clients, your individuals are living in, and they're not the best neighborhood, and you want to give them quality of life, you want them to strive, you want them to have opportunity to do well. So, I did my first low income tax credit, I want to say in 2012, which was Lynn's Place. And then, you just got the development bug, and you were able to move on and partners with others to develop housing. In particular, when you're developing supported housing, right? You're doing set asides. You're doing set asides for the very low. So you want to work with a developer or with a partner that just understand that structure, because coming in as the service provider, You want to have housing that are, quality housing, that are to have a development that not just have housing, but have common space. You're going to have to think about having offices, and you're going to have to think about a community space. So you're now introducing the program aspect to development, and you want that to be done in an organic way and for it to flow in the development of the project.
When it's cool you say VIP services. When I very first started the Delaine companies, they were one of the first nonprofits we started to work with on a project. So it's really cool, like the history of what they've done over the decades. It's pretty fantastic that it's a diverse led, affordable housing developer that provides housing for those who need it in the community. So shout out to those folks. Tell us a little bit about Lynn's Place. What kind of development? And for those who don't know what supportive housing is, can you kind of give like a small blurb about what is supportive housing?
So supportive housing are housing that we provide for individuals that need support, supportive housing, right? And these are individuals that might have a substance issue, mental illness, developmental, and you're able to have individual live independently on their own and provide case management service to help them to be productive citizen. So as a developer who develops supported housing, it normally comes with service dollars, whether from OMH, OPWDD, excuse me, Office of Mental Health, office with a person with developmental disabilities, or it comes with DOHMH, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So these are the government agency that offers service, and there's other OASIS, substance that deals with individuals with substance abuse, domestic violence, and so forth. These are government agency that offers service contract that allow agency to give housing and provide the needed services that a person would need. A person with mental illness would need a case manager to help them manage their daily living, just their daily work, to make sure that they go to work, they're taking their medication, just connect them, reunite them with their family if that's their goals, work with the individuals' goals that they have so that they can become productive citizen and they could go on to all these Maslow hierarchy of needs and just be productive citizens. So that supported housing is a support that we provide to individuals that need it in order to be productive citizen.
How do you define between someone who's like low acuity and high acuity? Like, what is the process of being able to understand what level of care that they need and how one can, be proactive in that space?
Okay, so Unique People Services is an agency that provides services for individuals with mental illness, people with a developmental disabilities, and individuals who are living with HIV and AIDS. Now, all of these individuals are connected to the city or the state. And, in terms of individuals with OPWDD, New York City or New York State takes care of their individuals with developmental disability, right? If you're born with developmental disability, you go through the front door. That's through the Office of Person with a Developmental Disability. I'm going to say OPWDD, and where you're evaluated based on your needs, and they will tell you where you're at, between high, low, medium, where you're at, and then what type of services that you're qualified for. And based on that, while you go through, it's called the front door, for them to evaluate you and to see what your needs is. as a parent, it's really important for you to get your child evaluated and get through the front door. It's not an easy process. It requires you to have a care manager, to work with someone who's going to help you. The child would have to be evaluated by a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and so forth, for them to have a diagnosis. And then that is brought to OPWDD and the process begin, and then it determines your level. With mental illness, again, you need, for us as an agency, it's not like you see someone out there and you said, this person have mental illness, we're going to help them. We could guide them towards getting evaluated, getting through the process through the city, and then through the city. All of our individuals come through the cities, the support system through the city, or come through the state. Because the state go through, there's a time in a year when New York City go through and they count all their homeless population, and then that number is put into the records, and so that they have prerequisites. They have a process in order to diagnose people, care for people, and to help people and to guide them into the right places. Like in our residence, when I talked about a continuum of care model, there's the transitional housing that we have for individuals with mental illness. You come out of the shelter system and you go to a transitional housing. In the transitional housing, you're there for 18 months. You work with your case managers around your goals, and your goal could be to get an apartment, it could be to be reunite with your family, whatever your goals are. So they work with you, and then of course housing is going to always be a goal because you're in a transitional a transitional apartment, and the transition, it's up to 180 days. After 180 days, you have to find housing, or we have to work with that individual to get housing, and then we move that person into our congregate care, like a Lynn's Place or a 2050, and that becomes permanent housing. Once a person goes through that in their place, they're there permanently. And then, you work again, they need care. They're attached to case managers, the social workers, again, working with them around their goals and their, so that they can go on and do great works. So, for us as an agency, in all of our housing, we have a continuum of care model, and, it allows people to begin one place and end to another.
And I really appreciate you sharing this. And I wonder, like, what could Los Angeles learn from like the New York model? Like, throughput seems to be such a major challenge here in terms of once people are placed in interim housing, they don't have an 18-month kind of transition period. It kind of seems that a lot of people, at least more locally, have been stuck in the interim housing kind of cycle. And then the follow-up question, and I know I'm asking two questions in one, is like for someone who gets diagnosed with an intellectual or developmental disability, like later on in life when they're not able to qualify for like a regional center that can provide them services, like what are the pathways that you've seen have been successful in the work that you've been doing?
Okay, so your first question is about Los Angeles and what they can learn from New York City and the housing that New York State, rather, the housing that they provide, right? I think families in New York can be very blessed because New York City takes care of their own. They're committed to taking care of their own. And I think the city, whether it's the transportation system, whether it's the housing or whatever, it's intentional in taking care of its citizen, right? And then, the public welfare or public support that the city offers. It's something, the Section 8 vouchers and so forth that New York that's a federal program that New York participates in. I think I have gone to LA and I did a tour of 10 cities. And if you've never been to Tent City, it really takes your breaths away to see the mass of an amount of people that are living in tents, literal
Are you
tents.
referring to Skid Row?
Yes, in Skid Row, yeah. And then, that took my breath away. And when I went there, I had gone with a supported housing conference. I couldn't understand why so many people lived there, what was being done, and why so little was being done, right? I am not an expert on that aspect of it. I didn't study it. So to be able to say this is what they did and what we could do, I'm not there. But one of the things that I know that New York City does, and it does well, is that it creates opportunity. It has, people who are in shelters have opportunity to move to transitional housing, to move to permanent housing, to move to scatter site housing. It is, agency like Unique People Services are not unique in New York City. We are one of 6,000 agency that does this work. And we're funded through the government. As an agency, we are 98% government funding. Our funding is city and state funding. And because the city and the state allocate these dollars, we're able to do work and we're able to help individuals in need. I don't know about the allocation in LA. And so for me to speak on that, I would speak in a very ignorant way about it. But I know that New York City allocate money, and this is something that they do consistently, where the very low, they're set aside. Because one of the reason why private developers want to work with an agency like us is that they're going to get the public dollars to build building, and they're going to partner with a supportive agency like Mines, and we're saying you're going to have to set aside X number of dollars for the very low. And whether you do it on 30% or you do it at 60%, in order to access those dollars, they are set aside for those individuals. And I believe that is what New York City does, that I'm not sure if LA does it. You could tell me.
Funding programs locally have been, significantly challenged. The local continuum of care, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, was recently defunded by the county. It is in the process of potentially being formally defunded by the city. So very challenged, very fractured, not as organized as how things have gone in New York. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. And just kind of circling back on to the the question of like, how do you deal with your clients who might get diagnosed with an intellectual or developmental disability once they kind of cross that threshold of being able to receive services through like a regional center. Like, how do you typically kind of interact with that?
Okay, so as I said before, with individuals I have worked with families. Let me just go with it. Presently, I'm working with a family who have an adult child who didn't go through the front door, right? And he's at the age now where he has, because he's high function, he has gone to school, he got his high school diploma, but now he needs to go out and work, right? So we're now working with that family. And this is a friend. Right? So this is something that I do volunteer, working with the family to help him go through the front door. Because when families have children with developmental disabilities, there's a time when it's easy to get them in the system, right? If they're born, they're diagnosed, you go to the social worker, you work, you get them through the front door, and it's simple. There's a lot of parents that struggle with, whether it's shame or acceptance or whatever. And then they get older, and having a child with disabilities, you have to have a plan. If that child is going to outlive you, what are you going to do? I am in conversation with my people in my church, don't want to put their children in home. I remember, and I mean stories. I remember my girlfriend, husband, sister was developmentally disabled. And, this is a family from Africa, very proud family. Father's a doctor, mother's a school teacher, and the daughter lived at home with them. So then the mother got very sick. She, was dying, and the daughter. So what do we do? And I said, you need to bring her to the emergency room and you need to ask for help because mommy's dying. And that's the quickest way to get her into the system and get her through the front door. It sounds, and I'm like, you have to say, you have no one to take care of her and you need help. You have to say that. You have to say those words. And it's going to be sad because she's going to cry and you're going to have to walk away and you're going to do that. But unless you are prepared for a family member to take care of this person for the rest of your life, then you have to get them in the system. As the family member are going to have to walk away and allow the system to help your child. And, we were able to get her into a home upstate and, she's been doing very well. And, they can still go in and visit. Doesn't mean if your child is in a home, you're cut off. You can go in, you can visit, you could take the child on vacation, you could take them, you can interact with them in your life and they can still be a part of your family, but you're not burdened with that care. And and then they can get help and they can get medication and you could stay with them and they could go on to live productive life in their circle, right? And I think about saying that. I think about a young lady that came to our program and she was at home. Dad was very protective and very scared. And she came in this shy person and she left. She was in our day program, then she got a job, she got a boyfriend, she just began to blossom. And you were able to see that butterfly, you were able to see that caterpillar turned into a butterfly, literally. So services and, just having faith or I guess trusting the process, trusting the system. I'm not a mother of an individuals with developmental disability. I can only imagine the scare, the anxiousness, all those things that goes with that when you have to separate. But I think New York State does an awesome job in taking care of its individual with developmental disability. It is one of the most regulated program. We're audited up the gazoo. If they come in and the blind is bent, you're going to get a certification. You're going to get a citation. If they come in and they check the individual's P&A, which is their personal lead allowances. We have to keep record of how we spend their money. They check their room, they check their clothes. It is a very regulatory agency. And when your individuals in a home, you have to take care of them and you have to do it in a standard that is, a high standard that is not only needed but is required by OPWDD for their individuals, because these are the most vulnerable individuals that we're serving, right? And these are the people that, but God, so you have to do a care. I think a lot of time it's fair and it's not having the education and it's not being informed, so when I meet people, I invite them to come visit, show them the house, show them the care that we provide, and just show them how these individuals live really productive life.
And I'll add, Andre, what I've seen is, different states deal with their housing crisis in different ways. Some may put it into the books of, hey, we want to create more affordable housing, or here's this regulation we put in place. New York actually puts the dollars to work, which not every state does. To say, not only do we want this program, but here's funding for that. Which, New York has a very robust affordable housing industry in part because of that. So, which other states don't have as much across the board, not just California, but develop a beautiful building at 2050 Grand Concourse in the Bronx, where it is not only affordable housing and supportive housing, which is beautiful, but also your home office. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how that came to be?
2050 Grand Concourse is our flagship building, and this building was built during COVID, right? So we saw this site. It's at the corner of Burnside Avenue and the Grand Concourse, and it was owned by St. Barnabas Hospital. And we were in negotiation, and then after a year of being in negotiation, they pulled out because some proposal came out and they wanted to put a clinic here, and they pulled out of the proposal. A year later, a year and a half later, they didn't get the proposal. They came back to us to see if we were interested. We said yes. We quickly got, because we had started the process already, and we quickly moved ahead and we got the property. Of course, they put in all these constraints. We could never run a clinic, yada, yada. Designing this building, I mean, I'm going to be biased, right? I love Fernando, the architect. Magnuson architect, you meet with Fernando, and as you're discussing what you want in the building, he's sitting there just, coming up with a render with his pen and with his pencil on the paper. I have that first concept when we just first met, framed in my office. And he, and they put together this building. 2050 is such a beautiful building. It is a building that you could pick up right here from the South Bronx and drop it in the most expensive address in Manhattan, and the building will be in place. We have won several awards. It's a LEED Platinum building. We harvest running water. We have a garden in the back. We have solar panel on the 13th floor. We have our community room on the 13th floor that overlook the city. And, we offer small apartments, studios apartment, to our individuals with special needs that have floor-to-ceiling windows that are just creatively, nightly decorated. And, our individuals are able to live productive lives and go on and do great work here. So this is a state 4% bond deal project. It's a state finance project, and our partners are Richmond is our syndicators, and we have the banks are Chase on this deal, but just really a fantastic project. And we occupy the first 3 floors, which is our headquarters. So we have to keep the building looking beautiful because our headquarters is here. So we're mindful of that in all that we do here at 2050. Again, we have a garden in the back that's staff, that is shared by both the staff and the residential side. The laundromat opens into the garden. So as people are doing their laundry, they could come down with their families. We have patio furniture outside. We have a garden for them to sit, and just a beautiful space. And, to top off the space, when we opened, Magnuson came in and gave us a barbecue for the residents, which was really amazing.
Andre, I toured the space when they first finished construction, and I hadn't looked at the drawings ahead of time, so I had no expectations, and I was blown away by the quality of what they delivered. Not only in the units, but even the common areas. The lobby's well designed. The commercial space is it's like you're in Midtown Manhattan. Great quality. Rooftop deck with a view looking out on the city. It is very, very impressive. And I think, back to the point about, New York allocating the dollars, like they really raise the bar on what they expect you to deliver. Like, no, we're putting money behind this. You cannot do cookie cutter. You cannot do ugly. This must be well designed, efficient space. And I think Yvette is not only delivered on that, and then Yvette is humble, but Yvette is an incredible development entrepreneur. Can you give people advice who are moving throughout their career and they want to do big and great things about building relationships? Because you have great relationships, Yvette. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, how do you create, build, support the relationships that you have in the industry?
So I'm gonna give you a backstory, right? My girlfriend, Melissa Mark Viverito, was the city council, right? Speaker for the city council. And I remember when she was the city council person in Harlem. And I remember I said, Melissa, Obama is going to be at the Apollo. You have tickets? She goes, my office is supporting Hillary. I said, okay, sister. Hustled over to the Apollo. You know, tickets were $50. Saw Obama, came up, shook his hand and said, good luck, and kept going, right? Didn't think he had a chance in the world, right? Right? Little did I know, right? And then later on, she became the speaker. When she was at the city council, Yvette, I need a partner. Come with me. I said, Melissa, I'm busy. But Yvette, and then she became speaker. So I'm like, I'm not getting any invitation anymore. So sometimes the people that hold the power are the secretary, the schedulers, and those are the people that will get you the appointment. And a lot of time people think it's the person and it's not. It's those people that they have around you. And I learned that early. So relationship and building relationship is something that, you have to take serious. So relationships are not formed today. They're formed from before. And when you're in this business, you never know where people can land. You never know what can happen, right? Because if you think about our current mayor, and just when he was going out and he said he wanted to be mayor and he started to run, he couldn't get anybody to show up to his press release, right? Because who was this person? He was never heard about. But, and one of the things he did was he went door to door. He got to know everyone. He solicited and he did the footwork. And that's where relationships are formed. They're formed by just the footwork, the day to day, because you never know where tomorrow will go. And I've always been a person that, maintain my relationships and just keep them. Like, Melissa, we were friends from college. She just didn't become speaker and we've been friends. We were friends when we were working on our master's degree together. And she's the godmother of my children. So it was a relationship. So when she became speaker, it's already there. And it's important to formulate relationship and keep relationship. For me, old broom sweet, better than new broom. So, my friends are those that I've had from middle school, high school. I'm always that person that keeps my friendship, and I value relationship. I value gatekeepers, your gatekeeper. And the gatekeepers are the receptionists, the secretaries of that. Those are the people that gets you in the door.
Wow, that's incredibly impactful. This is bringing up so many memories. Michael Oshowitz from SEO is really who was the first person who kind of talked to me about this very concept that you're describing, about how it's not the managing director that's going to be the gatekeeper itself. It's going to be their assistant, their executive assistant, their scheduler. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Kind of going back to your point about like the relationships, I think I have to bring it back to 2050 Grand Concourse. Number one, the 13-story building, that's incredible in and of itself. Number two, it sounds like you guys probably occupy about 20,000 square feet of office space, 3 floors. Is that about correct?
Yes.
And then thirdly, you brought in 48 of your employees to help finance a portion of the building. What was that story?
All right. So when we brought in employees to help with the project, when you're doing a project, it's not you alone, right? I think about, it's me. My chief of staff, Aziza Anderson, is the person that keeps me on track. Lisa Dowlin is my senior director of real estate that kind of manage the day-to-day of the project. Philorine Williams is the executive assistant. She's going to keep all the apartment. Eve is the CFO and his staff, and then we have the accountant there that works with it. Then you have the program people that is going to work with the program staff. Right now we have Dr. Johnson who oversees the program. Then we have Maria or Eunice that is going to oversee whether it's residential or it's scatter site. And then you go down to the program director, the case managers, the maintenance staff, and go through. So I can easily get to a number of 48 staff to help us make this a reality. It is not done at my desk. It is at no means do I hold the hand in the getting of the project done. I am just a dot in the I am literally just a dot in the process. It's the staff that works in the everyday job that they do. And then, we have Ron, our facility director, who is gonna work, get all the equipments, make sure that after the contractor leave, his team are able to run the building and they understand all the mechanic of the building. And then there's the super that goes in and so forth. So we leverage a lot of staff in everything that we do. As I said, I am just a dot in the process. Just a dot. Not even a comma, just a dot.
So I want to add two cool fun facts. One, part of us running this podcast is reaching out to incredibly busy people like Yvette who are doing all these wonderful things and getting them the car routes of time to meet with us. So yes, getting to Yvette's assistant is the way that we got her onto the podcast. Yvette's right.
To put anything in my schedule. Philorine will kill me. I start double and triple book. She will kill me, literally kill me.
So that's good advice, actually. Yvette's 100% right that, a number of, executives like yourselves, like getting with the assistant who have a better command of the calendar is often the best way to get breakthrough. If you could please tell us a little bit about Ogden Avenue, you as a nonprofit got connected with a for-profit developer.
So again, relationship, right? So Richard Roberts was someone that I have met and known, and we have talked. When you go to all these conferences, you're connected to people. And Richard knew of the work that Unique People Services did, and he was able to partner Keith and I together, I believe, and to come up with this project, Ogden Avenue. And, I believe Keith had gone to SUS, a larger nonprofit before, and whatever reason it didn't work out. And he came to us and, we were able to get the deal done because of relationship. Again, Emily, right, at HBD. And this has been, Ogden Avenue is a really interesting project because we later learned that this was an old theater that was very prominent back in the days. And the architect and the design team, Off-Gang, did an amazing job in designing this beautiful building that offers, studios, 1 and 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. A lot of projects don't offer 3 bedrooms, right? The borough president speak about having units to aid in the larger families in the Bronx. And she's always talking about us building units with 3 bedroom units. And we were able to give her that and giving her that and meeting her goal. And she was able to provide reserve funding for the project. This building is scheduled to open in December. We're working with a great architect. As I said, when we started with this project got caught up with regulations, right? Where 7-story and below did not require a site safety supervisor. And then the regulations were changed. So when the capital stack was being put together, we didn't factor in a site safety supervisor. And this is a large, it's a large glass of water. It's a large glass, upwards of $500,000. But it came and we quickly assembled ourselves, reached out to DOB, the local agency, got our certification, hire a site safety supervisor, took the money out of contingency and kept the project going. Now, doing this, of course, set the project behind a few weeks. But again, we're working with Bruno Fastacci, contractor, the same contractor who built 2050, again, relationship. And they were able to caught up with the time that we lost. And this project, hopefully, fingers crossed, will close earlier than December. And it's going to be a beautiful building, 80 units. We do have some, it's a 60-40 split. So we will have supported housing in there under DOHMH, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, under Mayor de Blasio 1515, where, so we'll be taking individuals who are homeless and providing quality home for them. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait for the opening of that building. The building is, when you drive by, just the back of the building is so beautiful. It is like, you look at it and the back of it is so incredibly beautiful that you're like, I can't wait to get in to see the apartment. So, when I go in and I do tours and I bring prospective board members to see the project, it is always complimentary. It's an incredible building. The team has done a wonderful job in just forging ahead, even though we had setbacks, and that's why having the right team when you're working on these projects is so important, because setbacks, disappointments are going to come, but you have to be able to pull your head together, pull your resources together, and come up with a B and sometimes a C plan and keep the project going, because, at all costs, we have to put the service in place. And because we're not going to lose our service dollars, we're going to forge ahead and we're going to get that. So I have no doubt that we'll be able to do this. And I can't wait.
Amazing. And if you finish by December, that means there's going to be some families that move into a brand new home by Christmas, which would be
amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So, Yvette, if you could talk to 21-year-old Yvette, what advice would you give her today?
I would tell Yvette, 21-year-old, to be bolder, to be more of a risk taker, to believe more in Yvette, to have more faith and confidence, and to just, trust the process. And be, like I tell my kids, my 3 favorite words are diligent, determination, and dedication. Diligent, determination, and dedication. You can make anything possible. If you're diligent enough, if you're determined enough, and you're dedicated to the process, you can achieve anything.
Absolutely amazing. Yvette, thank you so much. We really appreciate you talking to us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Andre. It was a pleasure meeting you, Andre, Yvette Brissett-Andre. See you again, commonalities.
Oh, I love it. It was meant to be, for sure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
I would love for you to come to the grand opening. It's going to be awesome. We always have a beautiful grand opening for our building. We make sure when the tenants have moved in, and we invite the local officials to come in and just do a really nice grand opening. These are not stories that you can make up. This is the impact that supported housing have on people's life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yvette.
Thank you. Bye-bye.